Today on the show, we're going to be talking about Zatanna Zatara. If you didn't know that she was actually childhood friends with Batman, then this show is for you. So, Zatanna Zatara. She first appeared in Hawkman, Volume 1, Number 4 in 1964. She's actually the cousin of Zachary Zatara and the daughter of Giovanni Zatara. Herself, her father and her cousin are part of a type of human called the Homo-Magi, which is a type of human that has the ability to channel magical energies into their body. And I would get into what exactly a Homo-Magi is and the history of them in more detail, but that needs its own video because they can be traced right back to the beginning of time and the first Atlantis in the DC universe. Zatanna's abilities to channel magical energies is actually a lot more apparent than her father's. This is because this ability actually comes from her mother's side, who is a woman called Cinderella. We don't know much about Cinderella. What we do know is that she's believed to be dead after her daughter's birth, when actually she just went back to Turkey, which is where she's originally from. Zatanna would be a very successful stage illusionist before discovering her magical abilities. She would discover them just before her father disappears, which was a storyline that crossed over a number of DC comics at the time. She'd first interact with Hawkman and Hawkwoman in 1964, and then the Atom in 1965, and then the Green Lantern in 1966. She'd also do a brief stint with Elongated Man in Detective Comics in 1966, before everything finalized in the Justice League of America in 1967. This adventure actually took place when Batman was huge on TV, so DC attempted to get Batman involved with the stories no matter how vague, so they put a witch in Detective Comics 336, and then later on said, yeah, that is Zatara in a very, very clever disguise, and no one really fell for it. The connection was very, very vague, but it gave DC a reason to get Batman involved with the Justice League of America. Zatanna would help out the Justice League of America on a number of cases before eventually joining them in the Justice League of America number 161 in 1978. During her time with the group, her power level actually greatly diminished, and she could only control the 4 elements, but this was eventually reversed in 1982. In the Books of Magic series, Zatanna actually becomes friends with a boy called Timothy Hunter, who was supposed to become the greatest magician in the world, and his girlfriend, Molly, who was cursed by the Queen of the Fairies, so she can't touch anything on the earth, including the ground. After a few very, very short adventures with these two, Zatanna sent Molly home, and Timothy would continue on his own adventure and deal with his own life. The next major series of events that Zatanna would be involved in was the 2004 Identity Crisis event. Dr. Light attacks and rapes Elongated Man's wife, Sue Dibney. The Justice League are able to apprehend him, and Zatanna has the idea to wipe his mind of the incident and alter his personality so he doesn't repeat the crime. This sparks a debate in the Justice League as to whether this is morally right or not. Zatanna, Hawkman, and the Atom all vote yes for this action, while Black Canary, Green Arrow, and Green Lantern are all like, this is bad, this is a horrible thing to do. The Flash, who at this time was Barry Allen, turns up and is like, I think we should do the mind wipe. And Zatanna goes to mind wipe Dr. Light and alter his personality, but literally seconds before she can get started, Batman bursts in and is like, this is a horrible thing to do, and Zatanna freezes him in place. The Justice League of America decide to wipe Batman's mind of this experience, and Zatanna continues her work on Dr. Light, and during the process, his intellectual ability is actually severely lowered. Batman, being Batman, would eventually find out about this event, and this would cause tension between these two for a long, long time. When Zatanna helps out Batman with the reconnaissance at Ra's al Ghul's Lazarus Pit, Zatanna's all like, why'd you come to me? And Batman's all like, I needed someone I could trust, but I had to settle for you. Oh! After Infinite Crisis, the two's relationship seems to have warmed up a bit more, and in Detective Comics number 824, Batman actually refers to Zatanna as Z. Another person to experience the mind wipe is Catwoman. Catwoman's whole effort to transition from villain into hero, and her whole effort to lead a moral life, are actually retconned thanks to Zatanna's mental intervention. When Catwoman finds out about this, she begins to distrust her own memories, her own choices, and even her own motives. Being Catwoman, she decides to retaliate against Zatanna. She finds her and gags her with duct tape and pushes her out of a window. Fortunately, Zatanna was able to survive this. It's super effective! In 2005, there was actually a 4-part Zatanna miniseries written by Grant Morrison. And it was really interesting to see Grant Morrison write about Zatanna because he's actually a practicing chaos magician, so he has a very first-hand experience with real-life magic, which is always really interesting to see in comics. Grant Morrison's take on Zatanna is actually the first time that I can say I really liked her, and this is what made me grow towards the character, as opposed to before everything that I'd read about her, I was a bit like, bitch. In this series, Zatanna is in a support group for heroes, and she talks about a failed magical ritual she did to search for her father's tomes, and she accidentally summons a shapeshifter named Gwydion. The shapeshifter kills her companions, and this causes her to suffer a lot of trauma. Plus, she's still feeling really guilty about all the mind wipes that she did, and these two things together just cause her to lose her powers. With the help of her apprentice, Misty Kilgore, she is able to capture the shapeshifter and use it as her own. After a while, she slowly begins to regain her confidence, and as a result of this, her powers come back, allowing her to defeat Zor, a rogue time tailor who released the Shida as a plague on the universe. The Time Tailors thank her and reward her with one last meeting with her father. He reveals that his tomes were actually written on the inside of her, and this was his greatest spell and his greatest gift to the whole entire universe. So the 7 soldiers would eventually battle the Shida, and Zatara would eventually cast a spell allowing her to retroactively place the 7 soldiers around the universe, allowing them to overthrow the Shida. It's super effective! Moving on to 2007, and we find out that Giovanni Zatara was actually a friend of Thomas Wayne, and that he actually taught Bruce Wayne in the art of escape. Turns out that Bruce and Zatanna were childhood friends, although this does contradict Justice League of America number 51, when Bruce has no memory of meeting her, and her only memory of him is when she was in that witch disguise. Bruce helps Zatanna investigate the death of her former assistant, and all the evidence points to a performer named Ivor Loxias. Turns out that Loxias is the Joker in disguise. The Joker shoots Zatanna in her own throat and incapacitates Batman. Zatanna is only able to heal herself by writing a spell in her own blood. The two would eventually foil the Joker's plans, and Batman agrees to put Zatanna's betrayal behind him, and the two agree to renew their friendship. After Camille Hoshi is believed to be kidnapped by the Shadow Cabinet, Zatanna agrees to accompany Batman, Black Lightning, and Firestorm to Metropolis. After some very short conflict, the teenage hero Rocket turns up and explains that Camille's perceived abduction was actually due to her. You see, it was actually a total misunderstanding that was caused by the Shadow Cabinet's quest to seek Rocket out and ask her help to defeat the cosmic vampire known as Starbreaker. Later on, Icon, Hardware, Zatanna, and her allies are able to defeat Starbreaker in a massive battle in the Himalayas. It's super effective! Now we're on to the New 52, and as far as personality goes, Zatanna hasn't really changed that much, though her origin is considerably different. She is still the daughter of Giovanni Zatara, and she still made a name for herself as an illusionist before she realized that she had real magical powers. At one time, she was actually in a relationship with Nick Necros, and the two lived in New York City. John Constantine would eventually come to New York City to study under Nick Necros, but Nick would eventually become obsessed with finding the books of magic, and this would alienate Zatanna and John. Because of the alienation, Zatanna and John actually became very close to one another and actually fell in love with each other. Nick felt betrayed and cheated on, so he decided to have the two of them killed by the Cult of the Cold Flame. Fortunately, the two of them were able to defend themselves and exile Nick's soul to hell. John would later on break Zatanna's heart, and one of his plans to save the world actually resulted in Zatanna seeing her father burn to death. Later on, Zatanna would discover that the Enchantress had become a threat to reality, and she'd be inducted into Madame Xanadu's Justice League Dark. Her teammates would be John Constantine, Shade, and Boston Brand. Madame Xanadu had seen a future where the world would end if the team did not join together and fight the Enchantress. The Enchantress, in turn, was looking for her human aspect, who was a woman named June Moon. John and Mind Warp brought about a series of events that actually resulted in the two women merging. The whole team would eventually find out that this whole series of events started when Madame Xanadu actually separated Enchantress from June in the first place. After these revelations, the team just kind of split up, though they would get back together later on. I'm not going to continue past this point because it wouldn't really be fair to the writers and the artists who worked on Justice League Dark, but if you want to pick up where this video left off, then read from Justice League Dark number 9 onwards. If you do choose to read Justice League Dark, this would actually prep you for the upcoming Justice League Dark movie, which is being written by Del Toro, who wrote Pacific Rim and the Hobbit movies.
It's super effective!
Okay guys, that is it for today. If you think I've missed anything important, please let me know in the comments down below. Also, don't forget to thumbs up and subscribe. My name is Faust, this has been Exploring Comics, and it is super effective.